generations to come.
And welcome to another edition of the TDN Writers Room. My name is Bill Finley. I'm a correspondent for the TDN. I also co-host the Down the Stretch radio show on SiriusXM.
Hope you all are having a good week and hope you all enjoyed the Belmont Stakes at Saratoga. I'm Randy Moss with NBC Sports.
Zoe Cadman with First Racing here in sunny California. Bill, I know that Randy is sponsored by Dude Wipes. Are you sponsored by Target?
Yeah, that's right. Target. I'm big bucks. Target is paying me to wear this T-shirt. Yes. It's actually, if you could see it, it's for the, Randy should know this, Target Field in Minneapolis. It's from the stadium when I went to the ball game there. So, but I'll have to get my attorney to let them know, and hopefully the check will be in the mail. So there you go. Yes, I tried Dude Wipes, but they just weren't interested. So.
And by the way, I am true confessions. I am now a proud owner of a pack of Dude Wipes.
Wow! And what can you say?
Saw them the other day at the store and thought, "What the heck?" That was at Target. Ironically, I was at Target, and there they were. So I said I had to do it since they support horse racing. I figured I would support.
Are they soft to the touch?
I'm not going there, Zoe. They are scented, though.
Oh, very nice.
Okay. How did we go off in this direction? Okay, team, let's get our act together and talk about, hey, horse racing. How about that? The Belmont Stakes on Saturday. With racing having so many problems lately, isn't it great to just have everything basically be perfect? Danny Gargan, a good guy, believed in his horse in Dornoch. He ran the race of his life in a very exciting race. Apparently, I wasn't there, but apparently the atmosphere was just supercharged. Everybody talked about what a great day it was and how it was so cool to see this race being run at Saratoga. The history of that. Mindframe, a horse that a lot of us thought wouldn't quite be ready for this assignment. Well, that was probably the case because he ran great, but he was green in the stretch. He might eventually be the best 3-year-old out there if he gets, now that he's gotten more experience. So, all positive. Nobody was crying. PETA wasn't at anybody's throats, anything like that. I thought that June 8th was one of the best days of horse racing that we've seen in this game in a long, long time, Randy.
It was also I hope I get this wording correct. It was the highest all sources Belmont Stakes Day handle ever for a non-Triple Crown possibility. In other words, when you get to the Belmont Stakes and you don't have the possibility of a Triple Crown sweep, it was the highest handle ever in that particular circumstance. So, congratulations to the New York Racing Association. Saratoga proved to be an unbelievable host for the Belmont Stakes. Of course, it'll go back to Belmont Park where it belongs when the new Belmont Park is ready. But a fabulous weekend of racing, not just on Saturday. A lot of great performances, and as usual on Belmont Stakes week, a lot of fantastic racing.
And really, congratulations to the town of Saratoga for hosting it, because it was packed to the gills. Some of the pictures, I had friends that went up there, the street parties they had from morning, noon, and night. You lived, ate, and breathed horses. It was just a fantastic sight to see. And I think a lot of people will be looking forward to next year at Saratoga as well, to be perfectly honest. I think people are already booking their hotel rooms for next year. It was such a success. And the weather, yes, they had a couple of downpours, but initially it was looking like it was going to be terrible. And it turned out to be quite nice, at least on Friday and Saturday.
Yeah, and the 1.25 miles worked out perfectly. That was not a factor at all in the race. In fact, I think it probably made it an even better race than if it was run at a mile. All right, wise guy, shaking your head. What's up?
No, they should be 1.5 miles. That's all.
Of course, it should be 1.5 miles at Belmont Park. It's not going to be 1.5 miles at. I'm not saying change it when they go back to Belmont. No, I would never do that. So other stories out of the race are horses that really didn't run very well. Sierra Leone was third as the heavy favorite, but he was just, I mean, he got too far behind. He had too much pace to make up. Looks like he was, up to his old antics. He was, lugging in a little bit in the stretch. I was very disappointed with him. I thought he was cinched to win this race. Then the two horses that won the Triple Crown races, Seize the Gray was 7th. Mystic Dan was 8th. Looks like the Triple Crown grind in the 3 races might have got the better of him. But Zoe, did you find any excuses for any of those horses, or what did you think about the horses that didn't run their best races?
I mean, Mystic Dan looked like he'd had enough going in, and kudos to McPeak. Honestly, horses fool you all the time. You never know until you put them into the starting gate. So Mystic Dan will resurface a little bit later in the summertime. Seize the Gray, I didn't really like going in. I think he had his day to shine in the Preakness. And Sierra Leone lost all chance. He stumbled coming out of the gate. The track was playing extremely kind to inside speed all day long. You had to be close. He made up an incredible amount of ground. I thought he wasn't going to go anywhere. Like, he was going backwards. Flavien Prat, suddenly about the 3/8 pole, just gave him a few slaps down the shoulder, and he just started picking up horses. But he didn't stay straight going down the lane, and he got beat fair and square. So the best horse did win, in my opinion.
Yeah, just a few points I'd like to make. First of all, about Mystic Dan and Seize the Gray, and we made this point last week. The record is now, in the last 20 years, 40 out of the last 46 horses who ran in the Preakness Stakes and then came back 3 weeks later and ran in the Belmont Stakes had a worse finish position in the Belmont than they did in the Preakness. And this is a perfect example. And both of these horses also ran on Kentucky Derby Day, right? Seize the Gray in the Pat Day Mile, Mystic Dan in the Kentucky Derby. So they were running for the 3rd time in 5 weeks, and I think it just caught up with them. Sierra Leone, at one point, you kind of start to run out of excuses for him, right? Yeah, he stumbled at the start, and then he got bumped and all that. But the way I see it, he's a deep closer anyway, and I know the track wasn't really necessarily playing to his strength, but the pace was also pretty darn quick. It should have been quick enough, I think, for Sierra Leone to do his thing. And yet now we saw something different from Sierra Leone. It looked like Zoe said, it looked like he was going to run last or next to last at about the 3/8 pole. He was going nowhere. Yeah. I mean, I turned to the person I was watching the race with, and I said, oh my God, he's a complete no-show in this race. And then suddenly here he comes. He was also carried out pretty badly at the top of the stretch and bumped by Protective. And oh, by the way, who was riding Protective? Tyler Gaffleone, who had been taken off of Sierra Leone. But, he's lugging in again, though, as they come down the stretch, even with the cage bit. So he makes a lot of mistakes. He really does. And hopefully maturity will solve some of that. And as far as Dornoch goes, a fantastic advertisement for betting on the horses. Okay? Because if you were a Dornoch fan to begin with, and if you believed what Danny Gargan, who we'll have on the podcast a little bit later, was saying after the Fountain of Youth, hey, he was only, 75, 80% fit. I didn't have him ready. I didn't like the way he looked in the Fountain of Youth, but Gargan said, forget it. He said he needs a target. He's going to have a target in the Bluegrass. He was off the pace in the Bluegrass, got beat 6.5 lengths. Sierra Leone flew by him. Danny said, that's okay. It turns out he doesn't want a target. He wants to be in front. We're going to send him into the lead in the Kentucky Derby. They tried. They couldn't get there. He got beat 18 lengths. If you believed in the horse and you believed the excuses and you were willing to give him another chance, yeah, you thought maybe he couldn't beat Sierra Leone, maybe. But you also got 10 times the price that Sierra Leone was, 8-5 compared to almost 18-1. So you talk about value. If you were a believer in Dornoch, I mean, that's a huge price on a horse like that, who was regarded as one of the top 3 or 4 3-year-olds in the country just as recently as late March, and he showed why.
Randy, I would definitely agree with you. One thing, I picked Sierra Leone in both the Derby and the Belmont. He's going to win one of these things before the year is over, maybe the Travers. But yeah, I don't want to give him any more excuses. He's a very good horse, but did not get the job done on either one of them. Now let's play this game. Who is the best 3-year-old in the country because you have 3 different Triple Crown winners. It's wide open. It'll obviously be settled coming up in the summer races and in the Breeders' Cup Classic. But this really surprised me. The 3-year-old poll that the NTRA puts out, not only was Torpedo Anna, and we're going to talk about the Acorn later, Torpedo Anna, the top horse in the 3-year-old poll, she was easily the top horse in the 3-year-old poll with Mystic Dan second and Dornoch third. So the voters, and there's no real criteria to that. You just, whatever way you believe you should vote or whatnot. But Torpedo Anna, that tells you a lot that it's so wide open that the voters think the filly might be the best 3-year-old in the country.
Right. And they may be right. I mean, we'll talk about the Acorn a little bit later. I guarantee you Kenny McPeak is kicking himself for not running her as well as Mystic Dan in the Belmont Stakes, because she very well might have won it the way she ran in the Acorn.
She would have won. Yeah, there is no question in my mind that she wouldn't have won. She was fantastic. The TDN Writers Room is brought to you by Keeneland. It was an exciting Belmont Stakes day for Keeneland September grads. Dornoch, purchased for a bargain now $325,000, led home a 1-2 finish over September graduate Mindframe. Elsewhere on the card, it was Randomized, who was absolutely brilliant. Also sold at Keeneland September, she took down the Grade 1 Ogden Phipps, and September grad Croupy took down the Grade 2 Suburban. Make plans to attend this fall's Keeneland September sale starting on September the 9th. I'll be there. Will you? We'll be right back after this message from Keeneland.
At Keeneland, a horse will always be measured in hands. Hands that see, that sense, that speak. Hands that hold our sport to a higher standard. Not for our sake, but for theirs. For the love of the horse, for generations to come.
The fastest horse of the week is brought to you by Global Campaign, one of those fast sires at WinStar Farm, who just had his first winner on Saturday. The 2-year-old Global Legend, just like his sire, won convincingly at first asking in a maiden special weight race at Gulfstream Park. Global Campaign, a son of Curlin, won the Grade 1 Woodward Stakes as a 4-year-old with a Beyer speed figure of 104. Then was third in the Breeders' Cup Classic behind Authentic and Improbable. Global Campaign won 6 times in 10 starts for WinStar Farm and Sagamore Farm, and now he stands at WinStar for $12,500. This week, we have co-fastest horses of the week, who ran the second fastest Beyer speed figures of 2024. On Friday, it was Arthur's Ride, a 4-year-old son of Tappet, who stormed to a front-running 12 3/4 length wire-to-wire win at Saratoga, going 1.25 miles and a second-level allowance. He is owned by Carla and Kathy Glassman of St. Paul, Minnesota, trained by Bill Mott. Then Saturday, Cogburn in the Jaipur Stakes at 5.5 furlongs on the turf, romped by 3.5 lengths. He's now won 5 times on turf in 6 starts since trainer Steve Asmussen switched him over from the dirt. He is a 5-year-old son of Not This Time co-owned by Clark Brewster and Bill and Corrine Heiligbro. Both those horses, Arthur's Ride and Cogburn, ran Beyer speed figures of 111. Second this year only to that 113 run by the turf sprinting filly sensation Overcharged. Our weekly TDN Writers Room podcast guest, brought to you as always by the Green Group, a tax consulting firm specializing in the thoroughbred industry and offering the intimacy and personal service of a small boutique firm with the expertise and breadth of services of a large firm.
And welcome in now the Green Group guest of the week. No surprise who we have on this week. Danny Gargan, the winning trainer of the Belmont Stakes with Dornoch. And just for the icing on the top of the cake, the next day he wins the Matt Winn with Society Dan at Churchill Downs. Danny, welcome and thanks for joining us. Your horse was 4th in the Bluegrass and 10th in the Derby, but you never gave up on him. You were as confident going into the Belmont as if you had won the Kentucky Derby. Why was that? What gave you so much confidence in him?
I mean, he came up here and he was training unbelievable. And, you know, when you get the one hole, 100 yards into the race, Brian Hernandez rode a masterful race. I think his ride Derby Day was tremendous because 100 yards in, he came over and took us right out of the race. And he rode perfect that day. And we got unfortunate and got stuck in behind a wall and just kept checking the whole way around. At one point, we had 2 horses beat, and that's not our running style. And I just drew a line in it, and Louis got off of him that day and said, "We're going to win the Belmont, Danny." I never got to let him run. So if he can only get beat 15 lengths not getting to run, and if he could ever break and get his position, I knew he'd be really tough, and he loves this track.
What were your instructions to Louis on Saturday?
Keep his face clean.
It worked.
Yeah. I mean, he said he's not the world's fastest out of the gate. When he broke as good as he did, and Louis had so much horse. I mean, the first 100 yards, he just drug him right there. And down the backside, I could see he had a lot of horse. If you really watch it up close, he's just loaded with horse all the way around there. We're just blessed that he showed up and ran the race we always knew he had in him.
Yep. Because of your comments, I went back this morning, and I had already watched it probably a half dozen times, but I went back and looked at the Kentucky Derby again. And I think that was part of the problem, was that his first jump out of the gate from the 1 hole in Louisville wasn't as fast, not nearly as fast as Mystic Dan. Mystic Dan almost beat the gate in the Kentucky Derby. He was a length in front after 20 or 30 yards.
Right. He broke so good. And like I said, Brian rode a phenomenal race. And I'm not taking anything away from Louis or anybody else. You know, I actually was Brian's agent at one time. And I couldn't be more proud of the ride he put together on Derby Day and what he's doing right now. He's a great guy. But he rode a winning race and deserved to win the race.
Yeah. But the plan in the Derby was also for Louis to keep the horse's face clean. Correct?
Yeah, and Brian took care of that right away. But,
right.
That's horse racing. You got to dust it off and move on to the next leg of the Triple Crown and hope you get one of them.
Danny, much like the Remsen, your horse has showed his tenacity when he gets past. And you've said this time and time again. And, we've all knocked Dornoch. You originally said he's the best horse you've ever trained. Well, you've been vindicated right now. But you've also said he likes a fight. When you saw him get past in the lane and he got past, were you thinking, oh, God, or, oh, it's on?
Oh, I tell you, this time I said, he ran up to him and Randy said, oh, we're going to be second. I said, no, he's going to dig back in. And we started screaming, and it's almost like he lifts you up. It was crazy. But how many horses you seen in these caliber races? I mean, I've seen it once in a while, or I've never seen a Grade 1 winner get past twice in big races and come back on and win the race. And I know Todd's horse, Run a Little Green, was getting out of this. But, you watch the gallop out. Nobody was in front of him until the pony caught him.
Yeah. Danny, was this race a little bit more special for you? Your first Grade 1, your first classic, and your father was a jock and he rode in the Belmont Stakes. It seems like it all came full circle.
I'm just blessed to be here. It's special to win if you'd have told me I'd win a Triple Crown race, I'd have laughed at you. It's one of these things that you work all your life and you don't sit around and think about it until you have the opportunity to have a horse like him. And he said, I'm just blessed to be here. And my father was blessed to, he won big races. And I'm just proud I could do half of what he did.
Has it sunk in?
Yeah, yesterday it really sunk in. And then, it was hard to think in on Saturday because, we had a big day Saturday with the other, a Society man running a big race in a Matt Winn. So yesterday I just stayed around the house and it was a nice day.
Joey, you brought that up. It's always one of my favorite trivia questions. What jockey in the 1973 Belmont Stakes did not get into the Hall of Fame? And is Danny's father, Dan Gargan. So that was a vintage crop of jockeys back then. Danny, I've asked you this before, but I'd like to go back to this subject. The breeding and the Good Magic Puka this has just been incredible. What they've pulled off, winning the Kentucky Derby last year with Mage and winning the Belmont this year with Dornoch. But you told me that there's very few similarities between the two horses.
No, they're totally opposites. I'd say Mage is more like Good Magic, and he's a smaller, stocky chestnut, like Society Man. And a lot of the Good Magics look like that. They're not really big, robust bay horses. They're medium-sized chestnuts, most of them. and W now I won the Remsen with him. They all look like Mage. Dornoch is a spitting image of Puka in the head and the shoulder. He looks so much like the mare. It's unbelievable. If you ever, I've been blessed, and John Stewart sends me pictures of her. And the new foal is a chestnut, but it's a big, tall, long-legged horse like Dornoch. So there's no telling what it could be. What a great buy that she was, though. To buy Puka for $2.9 million, that was probably the best buy in horse racing.
Mm. And Danny, originally after the race, you said you're definitely going to target the Travers, but is there any chance you'll go in either the Jim Dandy or Haskell beforehand?
Well, you always sit around and keep everything on the radar, until see how you come out of the race. He's actually acting tremendous right now. He's, walking around like a bulldog, act like he didn't run. Monmouth is always in the picture, but, it gets really hot down there. It's a tough place. I'm not a big fan of how hot it might be there, but it is a grade 1. The Jim Dandy's right here, and we can walk him right out of his stall. I love to win at Saratoga. Everybody knows it's my favorite racetrack, so that's why the Belmont's so special this year to me, too. I bring all my horses here and train them from May to October every year, so, I don't know for sure what we're going to do right this minute, but I wouldn't be shocked if he shows up here. The more I think about it with the weather.
It's, as is becoming increasingly common, as you know, in thoroughbred racing, it was a very crowded winter circle. You mentioned Randy Hill, West Paces, Belmar, but a lot of attention went to 2-8 racing and Jason Worth, just getting involved now in racehorse ownership. Tell us a little bit about what he's kind of brought to the table in terms of not only notoriety, but also enthusiasm.
I tell you, he's a wonderful person to be around. He's, such a big, gentle giant. The way he handles himself is just, you couldn't be more proud of someone that just got in the game and respects the game at all levels. I mean, he treats the help amazing. He treats everybody with respect. He feels so blessed. He genuinely loves horse racing. Like I've told everybody in the past, when he comes to the barn, his favorite horse in the barn, besides Dornoch, is the barn pony. No, he loves him. His name's Thanos, and he loves him. So, I mean, he's just not there because he has a good horse. He's in horse racing because he loves the game. And this is just the icing on the cake for him.
Now, Danny, the last time we had you on this podcast, you promised me Jason Worth. I like to climb trees. He's a big, tall, good-looking man.
I promised you could meet him, Zoe.
He's easy on the eyes. Where is he? I want to meet him. I'm coming to Saratoga.
Well, he'll be back. I mean, he was here. Just that day got a little hectic and wild, but he was at the barn all week, 4 days in a row, Zoe. I can't, Zoe was partying a lot that week. She wasn't out there much.
So
we were in Trotters Sunday night till about 1 o'clock.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
So let me steer this away from Zoe's obsession with Jason Worth here for a second and kind of get down to the brass tacks here, Danny. Dornoch paid $37.40 to win. The trifecta with Mindframe and Sierra Leone right behind him paid almost $1,000 for a $2 bet. If you like Dornoch, that's huge. Please tell us that you invested in some of that. I'm
not going to lie to you. I didn't bet a penny.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot going on that day. No, Jason bet and Randy, they gamble big. I just, it meant so much to me if he could win that, this is life-changing, Randy. If he, he's going to be a stallion one day and things like that. And, him winning means way more than me making a bet. I'm just thrilled. Those guys, I don't want to tell you, one of them made big money, and it's shocking how much he made. But, they do, I let them do the betting that day, and I'm enjoying the ride that we're on, and just what a crazy fun thing to be a part of.
See, you could have had both. You could have enjoyed the ride, and you could have had the money at the windows.
I bet the one the next day.
Oh, okay.
Danny, it seems like you have the keys to good magic. W-Nell, Society Man, Dornoch. What is it about the progeny of good magic? And are you just going to have all good magics in your barn from now on?
Well, the sad thing about that is, Zoe, I only have one coming this year, and it's a filly. And
So far.
yeah, so far. I mean, Barbara stopped by the other day. I didn't think she has anything, but we'll see. Hopefully someone sends a few. But, we've been blessed. We've had 3 colts. All 3 of them are graded stake winners now. All 3 of them, 2 of them ran in a Derby. W&L was on the Derby trail. He just didn't quite make it there. Learned some lessons with him that probably helped the other horses in the future, why they're so good this year. And, it's a learning curve, but Good Magic was a great racehorse, and he's obviously turned into a great stallion. And I was a big fan of his progeny, and I, spent a lot of money trying to get a few that we could. But I'm pleased with everything we've had with them. And like I said, I've got a filly this year named Snow White. I really like her, and hopefully she'll be an Oaks horse next year.
And Danny, the weekend you had, again, not only with the Belmont, but also winning the Matt Winn, what do you think this might do for your career? You obviously, were competing against the very, very best, and you won not only 1 graded stakes race, but 2, one of which is the Belmont Stakes. Is the phone ringing a little bit more now? How do you think this might change things for you?
Well, I'm just hoping that when it comes time for the sales season, we can get try to work things out. We have a partnership to go there and try to buy 7 or 8 colts and try to repeat this year where we're on the Triple Crown. And I think the guys that I have are going to support that, and hopefully we can all work together and get through everything and try to get back here again next year with a couple live horses.
And if you need somebody to work closely with Jason Worth at the sales, Zoe will volunteer.
Oh. Have to
He's
shoot
going to
off
run
his
when
leg.
he sees me.
Oh, God. But the thing about him is he'll enjoy Zoe. She's fun. She's harmless.
Zoe,
Fine.
don't you have a boyfriend, Zoe? Like, what's the deal here?
No. I'm now free and single. Just putting that out there.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Just going into Saratoga is perfect
She
timing.
just hasn't told the boyfriend yet. He'll have to tune in to catch up.
Yeah. All right. We want to thank Danny Gargan so much, the Green Group Guest of the Week. What a tremendous weekend he had, and the confidence he showed in Dornoch was amazing. And he's been proven right every single time. He says it's the best horse he ever trained before he ever ran. He was right about that. He said he's going to be very dangerous in the Belmont. He was certainly right about that. So, Danny, congratulations on all your success, and keep it up.
Thanks, guys, for having me, and thanks for everything you guys do for horse racing.
Thanks, Danny.
Thanks, Danny. See you soon.
Thank you. As the Green Group Guest of the Week, Danny Gargan will receive a free 1-hour tax consultation with the Green Group. This comes from a banner on the Green Group's LinkedIn page. One conversation with Lynn Green will save you money. And who doesn't want to save money? To find out more, go to greenco.com.
When it comes to the horse industry, tax laws are complicated and unique. That is why most people overpay on their taxes. Why not get a second opinion from the top-rated accounting and tax firm in the thoroughbred industry? With over 800 clients in the horse business alone, the Green Group has the expertise to save you taxes. There is a reason the most successful owners, breeders, trainers, vets, and horsemen use the Green Group as their tax advisors. We save you taxes. Over the past 40 years, the Green Group founder, Len Green, has owned and bred some of the best racehorses in the history of the sport. His DJ stable competes at the highest level and has received the game's most prestigious honors. Len Green's in-depth, hands-on industry knowledge, combined with current-edge tax-saving strategies, produces positive tax-saving results for clients. Take advantage of this special offer. The Green Group will give you a complimentary and confidential review of your tax return. Contact us at 732-634-5100 or visit our website at www.greenco.com.
So, guys, of course, there was more than just the Belmont Stakes at Saratoga, just a great couple days of racing. So let's go over some of the major races. And we already talked about the Acorn with Torpedo Anna. She absolutely put on a show, won by 5.5 lengths. And Zoe, I want to ask you this. Kenny McPeak said afterwards that she lost a shoe. How relevant is that? How much could that have affected her performance? How much more impressive does it make it?
A lot. I mean, it flew off in the first turn, correct? Was that where it flew off? Yeah, I mean, imagine you losing a shoe and running 3 miles, Bill. How would that feel?
Well, because I can't run 3 feet, that would not feel very good.
Yeah, you're not getting the same traction that you're getting. I mean, that is why they wear the shoes. I mean, horses can train in bare feet, but if you're running against other horses in metal shoes, they're just getting a bit more traction. There's less slipping and sliding. So to lose a front shoe, yeah, that's huge. Absolutely huge. I thought she was tremendous. Best performance. Absolutely mind-blowing. She should have been in the Belmont.
And like, to me, here's what makes the performance so mind-blowing, right? For a 1.1 miles at Saratoga, which can be a pretty demanding racetrack surface at that distance, the pace of the Acorn Stakes was hot. For 3-year-old fillies, it was red hot, right? And just FYI was hustled pretty hard to get to the lead. And Torpedo Anna was basically right on her hip. She was right on her flank, just a length and a quarter behind. Okay. When you look at some of the other horses that were up there on the pace, first of all, Just FYI was essentially eased in the stretch. She went her last quarter in 29.97 seconds. Gunsong was right there behind Torpedo Anna, sitting in third. Gunsong finished her last quarter in 29.63 seconds. Almost every other horse in the race collapsed in the last part of it, right? When you look at the final closing fractions, Torpedo Anna was right there, just to the outside of Just FYI, and still ran the fastest finishing quarter mile of any horse in the Acorn field, drawing away to win by 5.5 lengths despite blowing a shoe on the first turn. It was just a sensational performance by Torpedo Anna. And, she looking at that, she probably should have been in the Belmont Stakes field. 1.25 miles wouldn't have been a problem for her. No.
The question now is, Ken McPeak is one trainer not afraid to push the envelope. Does he now find a spot for her? He says, no way I'll ever run her against Mystic Dan, but there's a lot of big races coming up. Knowing Ken and the way he likes, he likes big challenges. I can see her running in the Haskell or something like that. And that would be fantastic.
I mean, he said no initially, but he also said no to the Preakness.
Right.
So it's Kenny McPeak. And just a quick note on Just FYI, Junior Alvarado obviously listened to my instructions last week when I told him to send, because she had every opportunity. I'm not sure that everything's okay with her, to be perfectly honest, because she folded like a cheap suit and she was completely done. And I believe she's better than that. So we'll have to see where she surfaces. But yeah, they all tried to beat her and nobody was beating her. She earned it and she won it. She was tremendous. Why was she not fastest horse of the week?
Buyer speed figure 99. So it wasn't really even, close to fastest horse of the week category, but it's a 3-year-old filly race. It was an extremely aggressively paced race. We'll talk about the Met Mile and how that can, how those fractions can impact final times when we talk about National Treasure.
All right, so let's move on to the Ogden Phipps now. And the big story was Idiomatic getting beat. She had won 9 of her last 10 starts. I liked her so much last year. I became very close to voting for her for Horse of the Year. Changed my mind at the last minute. We know Randomized is a good horse trained by Chad Brown, but Idiomatic did beat her last year in the Breeders' Cup Biffstaff, so she turned the tables on her. I don't think Idiomatic had any excuses whatsoever. She ran a good race. Randomized just ran better. She did get to the lead, but Idiomatic had every chance to catch her. And I was a little bit disappointed by this. There's nothing wrong with Randomized, but I hate to see really good horses get beat. When they start to get a following, they start to get a winning streak going. And it's a little bit of a downer to see her lose here, but take nothing away from Randomized, trained by Chad Brown. She ran a hell of a race, and she had to beat Idiomatic.
I think Idiomatic did have a legitimate excuse, right? I mean, Randomized is a really good horse. She's one of the fastest breaking horses in major stakes competition that you're going to find anywhere. She's got a tremendous first 16th of a mile when they want to use it, and they usually do to try to get her to the lead. She was obviously very well prepared, clicking on all cylinders. She was just a half length behind Idiomatic, as you pointed out in the Breeders' Cup. You can't go 4 wide on both turns and hope to outrun a horse like that. Yeah, I know she was a heavy, heavy favorite, and deservedly so, but that's just too much ground to give up to a really good filly like Randomized. Depending on, what conversion you use in your handicapping for wide trips, I think Randomized was in the 2 path on both turns. That's 4 lengths difference, right? So to me, and Idiomatic was getting to her at the end and, was going to beat her if the race was a 16th of a mile longer. So I don't think, in my opinion, Idiomatic loses anything in stature, at least not in my eyes.
She got beat ahead. So a big head, but she got beat ahead. I don't believe she lost anything, but I don't think they're going past Randomized if they go round again, Randy. Did you see the confidence that Joel Rosario displayed? Never hit her. Never uncocked his stick. Now, I don't know if she doesn't like to be hit. I don't like to be hit, so I don't blame her if she doesn't. But he hand rode her the whole way down the lane. Maybe tapped her a couple of times down the shoulder. The confidence he had in her was enough to get him to the winning line in front. And I firmly believe even if they'd gone an 1/8 of a mile around again, they're not getting by Randomized. She was good. And she was 6-1, and I bet. So thank you.
Good for you, Zoe. All right. So we all know, listeners of this show, viewers of the show, know that Randy has 17 favorite horses, 17 of them, led by 2 Phils and then a bunch of others. I have 1. I only got 1. It's my man, Bookham Dano, the Jersey bred, and he came through in the Woody Stevens. He got a really good trip. They had those 2 long shots out there that just went this hellacious pace. He sat about 6-7 lengths behind them, took control, then had enough left to draw off. And the reason why I do this, I'm a resident of New Jersey. Monmouth Park is my favorite track. And the poor New Jersey bred program has just been in terrible shape over the last many years because there's so little racing in New Jersey. No slots. You basically have just Monmouth Park. So people don't want to breed in the state. But this horse was bred in New Jersey and is obviously a lot better than your typical Jersey bred. And, I talked to Derek Ryan afterwards and he said, I know this horse has never run against the 2-turn horses running the Derby or anything, but I'm going to make an argument. He's the best 3-year-old in the country. If you just take by raw talent and accomplishments, he might have a point there. He's not going to go into the Haskell or Travers or try to prove anything like that. He's going to go next in the Alan Jerkins, but he's my man. Go get him, Dano.
It was very cool. Really cool to watch. I know you didn't see the race live, Bill, because you were sitting in apparently a effing 300-degree aeroplane on a runway somewhere. Well,
I'll tell you this story. I was trying to get to Golden Gate. I was in the middle of the day. I was on a plane that was supposed to leave at 3:00. The air conditioner and all the power broke down. It was about 300 degrees in the plane. Eventually, they let us off. I said, to hell with it. I came home. The plane took off 4.5 hours late. Wow. So, and if the plane is that late, they actually have to give you your money back now. So, But I missed you, Zoe. I was really looking forward to coming to Golden Gate. But that was brutal. It was like, sitting in a sweatshop for an hour and a half. Ugh.
Well, I got to watch him live and he was terrific. He ran against the bias. He got a really, really good trip and he got a perfect ride by a guy who was just putting on performances race after race. So, yeah, he went great. Prince of Monaco, too far back. I don't know why he happened to be so far back, but he was closing late, but too late.
Bill, do you have any noise canceling headphones you can put on right now? Because I don't want you to hear this.
Okay.
Prince of Monaco was probably 3 lengths the best horse. He was so far back because he got wiped out at the start. Completely wiped out at the start, and yet was flying at the end and just got beat a half length by Bookham Dano. I think Bookham Dano's an outstanding horse. He's earned all the accolades he gets. Good for him for winning. I love the fact that he's a New Jersey bred. I love the fact that he's Bill's favorite horse, and he only has 1. But Prince of Monaco was the best horse in the Woody Stevens.
I can see that point, but they don't pay off at the windows for who was best. Well, we've been arguing on the show and debating who's the best 3-year-old. Is Bookham Dano the best 3-year-old sprinter? Should he have won that race? Well, who is the best horse in the country right now? I think that question was answered on Saturday as well, as National Treasure put on another show for Bob Baffert in the Met Mile. The other story is White Abarrio didn't run any good at all. And the owners, boy, they're a little fickle. They took the horse away from Saffie Joseph. Rick Dutrow only wins the Breeders' Cup Classic for him. But what have you done for me lately? Nothing. Goodbye, Rick. You're fired. The horse goes back to Saffie Joseph. That's not much in the loyalty department. But anyways, you can't take anything away from National Treasure. He is, I think, clearly the best horse in the country right now.
At a mile, I would agree with you completely, and maybe a little bit longer as well. I don't really think he's going to be as good, for example, in the Breeders' Cup Classic if they choose to go that route, and I kind of don't think Bob will. I think he's going to mainly focus on some of the shorter races, but this is how good National Treasure is right now, and Bob doesn't mess around. You know, when he gets a horse like this that has the speed that National Treasure has, when he gets in these 1 mile races, like we saw in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, last when he ran against Cody's Wish, just blast off away from there. Don't try to get cute. Just go for the lead, right? There have been, this is my rabbit hole, Zoe.
Thank you.
There have been now, since they created the Wilson Chute at Saratoga, there have been 107 races run at the newly constructed 1 mile distance at Saratoga. Of those 107 races, National Treasure has the fastest quarter, the fastest half, and the fastest 3/4 of a mile, and not just by a small margin. His 3/4 mile in the Met Mile was 109.34. That's 1 1/5 seconds faster than the previous record 6 furlong fraction at that distance. His half mile was almost a full second faster than any other race that had been run at that distance at Saratoga. And yet he kept running. Right. His buyer speed figure was only, I think, a 102. And some people might be disappointed by that because he ran a 107, I think, earlier, and maybe even a 106 as well. But you don't run that fast early and then keep running late unless you're flight line. Right. So it was an amazing race for National Treasure, just given how fast he ran in the first part of the race. And then kick clear at the end. The competition wasn't really Met Mile worthy, but he was certainly worthy of the way he ran.
You know, we need to sponsor this segment, Randy's Rabbit Hole, each week. And maybe your friends at Dude Wipes would sponsor it. You know, we're always looking for new sponsors to come aboard here. But Randy's Rabbit Hole brought to you by Dude Wipes. And not only am I the charge of the rabbit hole, but I'm a proud Dude Wipes customer. There you go.
Yeah, National Treasure. And, you know, it's one thing, guys, putting out those kind of fractions when you're alone on the front end and finishing, because we know that lone speed, no matter how fast or how slow you're going, is very, very dominant and very dangerous. But when you are headed and you're dueling for the lead, Hoist the Gold ran a terrific race and he was right on him every single jump of the way. So the fact that he fought through those fractions and then prevailed and drew off, it's making the Pegasus World Cup look a really, really good race. But he was absolutely brilliant, National Treasure. And, you know, it was a pretty good Saturday or weekend for Bob as well, because he released another monster. Parenting took down the Affirmed at Santa Anita, and he drew off and won by as many lengths as he pleased. So Bob's looking pretty good right now.
So I'll ask both of you, any theories on White Abarrio?
Nope.
Go ahead, Zoe.
No, I just think that maybe he's a horse who relishes change. Some horses do. He got to Rick's barn and all of a sudden he came alive and was like, this is great. Everything's wonderful. And then he kind of plateaued. So that's really the only theory that I can have for him. Everyone said he's kind of a one-turn horse. Maybe that's his best. He won the Breeders' Cup Classic. Oh, he's a one-turn horse. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Saffie knows him. He's gone back to them. Maybe he's just had enough.
I think he's better at 1 1/8 than 1 1/4. than he is around a one-turn mile. I said that last week. That's why I didn't like him in here, because I thought a mile, given the way this race was going to be run with National Treasure just blasting off away from there, I think the pace was going to be a little too hot for White Barrio. And he's also clearly, for whatever reason, not in the same place that he was when he won the Breeders' Cup Classic. And maybe that's, what the owners are thinking when they transferred him. This just in from the Pennsylvania Horse Breeders Association. If you own a 2-year-old, you bought that 2-year-old either privately or at a sale, and that 2-year-old is Pennsylvania sired, Pennsylvania bred, you have until the end of June to nominate for the PA Sired Series at a price of $1,000. That makes your horse eligible for those 3 sets of $100,000 stakes races for PA Sired, PA Breds this year and early next year. Here's the procedure. First, go to pabred.com. Check out the featured section on the homepage to double check if perhaps your 2-year-old is already nominated. If he or she is not nominated, print the nomination form, send it in with your $1,000 fee, postmark it by June the 30th. If you have any questions, you can contact the PA Bred office. That number, as you see, 610-444-1050.
The state of Pennsylvania has the best breeders program in the entire United States.
When you buy a yearling, it's a little bit like buying a lottery ticket. And we are trying to provide the lottery ticket that the likelihood is to hit the jackpot.
Angel of Empire wins the Arkansas Derby and wins it clear.
Uncle Heavy late, it's a photo finish.
Pennsylvania and the PHBA have the best state-bred program in the country, bar none.
The winner, Uncle Heavy. He's a 3-year-old bred in Pennsylvania.
Well, Sunday was a sad day, not just for horse racing in the Bay Area, but for horse racing in general, as we lost another racetrack. Golden Gate Fields, the last major track left in San Francisco Bay Meadows, closed down several years ago. Called it a quits at the end of the day. Last Sunday was the last day ever. Zoe, I know you were there, and I think the atmosphere I was watching you doing the simulcast. You did a great job, by the way. I think it was kind of a bittersweet afternoon. People seem to be really glad they were there to say goodbye. But at the same time, you're saying goodbye to an old friend.
Absolutely. And guys, that leads us to this week's edition of First Things First. I made the trip up to Golden Gate Fields. Driving in there was a sign off of the freeway saying racetrack traffic, which is something that I don't think I've ever seen at Golden Gate Fields. They were queued up from the freeway to get into Golden Gate. I've been up there a lot of times and I have never seen that many people. A lot of people coming in to celebrate Golden Gate Fields, like a celebration of life, so to speak, and not so much a funeral. They were lined 10 deep around the paddock. They ran out of beer. If you bet a race and you were trying to cash a ticket, good luck. That line went round the grandstand. But generally, the feeling was just a feeling of celebration. People came far from a long way away. I interviewed some people that came in from Vegas that had actually never even been to Golden Gate and just thought it was closing weekend and they wanted to come in. I did check out the bathrooms because the men's bathrooms, sorry guys, I went in there and snapped a picture. There was no one in there. Just want to let you know, but the best view of the Bay Bridge is from the men's bathroom in the Turf Club. We did have an 8-race card and it was a really cruel twist of fate that a Southern California shipper trained by Phil D'Amato won the last and final race ever held at Golden Gate Fields. But all in all, it was a great day at Golden Gate Fields. I'm glad I was there. We know that the great late Sam Spear was looking down on Golden Gate from the sky, and it really was a great day to celebrate Golden Gate Fields. Meanwhile, racing goes on at Santa Anita. We will start a Thursday through Sunday card for closing weekend. We do have a pick 6 carryover expected to exceed over $500,000 on Thursday. So come and play at Santa Anita. Sunday is Father's Day, guys. What a better day to bring your dads out to Santa Anita, where we have a special Father's Day brunch there in the San Juan Capistrano. So a lot of things going on at Santa Anita. But Bill, I know you were saddened that you couldn't come to Golden Gate. Have you ever been?
I was there for simulcasting once. I've never been for live racing. So yeah, I missed out on that. And that was one of the many reasons why I wanted to be there. I wanted to just add one more thing to the conversation though. And, you know, people are pointing fingers at blame and whose fault this is. And that happens. But this is the tale of modern horse racing in 2024. You have a track that sits on very valuable land that has no form of revenue outside of the handle, no slot machine money, no casino money coming in. We've gotten to a point in the sport where trying to run a racetrack like that is not economically viable. People want to blame First Racing, but any person that owned a place like that was losing money with no end in sight. It's not like you could say, oh, we're going to get slots in 2026. We'll just hang in there. You know, it was unfortunate, but at the same time, it's a prudent business decision. And we're going to see, unfortunately, more of this as, you know, we kept chipping away, and the tracks that don't have casino money are all in big trouble. And unfortunately, Zoe, we worry about Santa Anita as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big concern. And part of the closure of Golden Gate Fields was hoping to bring some horses down to Santa Anita. Now, some of them have come, but honestly, a lot of them don't fit. So they were hoping to go back to a 4-day racing week. That's not happening, at least for now. We're all crossing our fingers down there that it does. But as far as Golden Gate, no one really knows what's going to happen to the land. I'm not sure there's a whole lot that they can build on it, to be perfectly honest. It was built on basically reclaimed land to begin with. So I don't know what the future of it is right now, unless Randy knows something.
No, it's really well said, guys, about all the things that have gone into the closing of Golden Gate. And it's one thing to talk about the economic realities that's exactly what they are. They're realities right now. But when you see these racetracks close, even small racetracks elsewhere around the country, one thing that really hits home are the people that made their living there and that grew up there. And not just the horsemen, but also, you know, the fans that have been coming there for so long, and how emotional it is for them, and how it can be a complete upheaval for some of the horsemen that have been accustomed to being there for so long. If I was in management at Golden Gate, the first thing that would have been going through my mind is, where have all these people been?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, why? You know, what did we do wrong? If these people are willing to come to the horse races, you know, what should we have done? What could we have done differently to try to get more of these people to come out on even a semi-regular basis? And unfortunately, I don't think there's a good answer for that. And there may be nothing that they could have done. It may be just people coming out again, like you said, to celebrate and to just be a part of the ending of an era.
And, you know, it was the same thing at Hollywood Park. You know, I was there on closing day, and where did all the people come from? It was packed. And, you know, it's like people like a good party, a good funeral at a party. So I don't know, but it was packed, and there were a lot of people that came. It was a good day, and I'm glad I went. I really am. But you got to feel for the trainers and the local guys. A lot of them are just packing up and going to retire. Now, the younger guys aren't, obviously, but the older guys, they're done.
Yeah, quite a shame there. So the other big story off track during the week was this fiasco in Louisiana, where it started out where basically the Louisiana Racing Commission was going to get away from all that's not HISA is not in effect in Louisiana, but they were following the Racing Commissioners International, their set of rules, which are, you know, very prudent and wise and well thought out. They ripped it up, they threw it away in the trash, and came up with their own rules, which basically was anything goes, including especially they were going to allow clenbuterol to be given to horses within 3 days of their racing. And this was such a bad idea that the backlash was from everyone. Sue Finley and the TDN did a very good story talking to the trainers that normally go to the fairgrounds in the winter and then leave, and how this was going to create a huge problem for them, because if they use these drugs when they show up at Churchill Downs or whatnot, those horses would test positive. So they couldn't do all this. So then they first thing they said was, okay, some of the rules are bad, but not all of them. So we'll change the rule on clenbuterol and depomedrol, whatever the heck that drug is. And then that still wasn't any good. Churchill Downs stepped up and said, no, this is not good enough. You don't do something about this. You can forget about the Louisiana Derby. We'll take it away from you, from their own racetrack. HISA put in something where anybody who shipped out of Louisiana had to go on the vets list at their new track. So, the industry came together to force them to go back to what was common sense and logical. But what were they thinking? I mean, this was, talk about like one of the worst ideas we've ever heard in a sport where, unfortunately, there have been a lot of bad ideas over the years. This one takes the cake.
Oh, look, when HISA was first proposed, the supporters of HISA pointed out that horse racing has had decades of opportunities to clean its own house, and that the state-by-state regulatory framework when it came to medication was, had proven to be woefully inadequate. Those who were against HISA tended to argue that the states were capable of policing themselves and you didn't need any government interference. Well, look, this Louisiana situation points out about as conclusively as anything could that state racing commissions cannot be trusted to safeguard the future of the sport, right? The Louisiana Racing Commission reversed course only because of pressure that was brought to bear by HISA and by Churchill Downs Incorporated. And if HISA had not been in existence, this might have caused some controversy, but very possibly the regulations might have gone into effect to the detriment of the horses and the detriment of the sport. I mean, 3 cheers to HISA, 3 cheers to Churchill Downs Incorporated for creating the pressure that basically caused the LRC to reverse course.
And that's why we can't have nice things, because we can't police ourselves. Honestly, I mean, it just goes to show you. And I've got to say this, more often than not, we are bashing Churchill Downs on this podcast, but a big tip of the hat to Churchill for stepping in and saying, hey, listen, we're going to take away our graded stakes. You're not going to have this. You're not going to have the Risen Star. You're not going to have the Louisiana Derby. You better buck up and switch things up. I think I said it last week. This week, we're going to be talking about how they rescinded everything, and they have. So it's good. But God, from the outside looking in, we just must look like a complete bunch of morons, to be perfectly honest. Mm-hmm. Just a bunch of idiots. Like, look at these guys. They're saying that they can police themselves. Well, they obviously can't. These guys are a bunch of morons. Why do I want to join them in their 3-ring circus?
And Bill Carstangen and CDI really stepped up in a big way with the threats that they brought to the table that really turned the tables on this whole thing.
Yeah, and I hope the Louisiana Racing Commission is embarrassed, because they embarrassed themselves. And but at the end of the day, it did work out. We're going back to some sensible rules from the ARCI. Depending on what happens in the courts, perhaps Louisiana will or will not become a HISA state, but we'll keep an eye on that. But I guess at the end of the day, and Zoe's right. I think she made a very good point there, that, we try to tell the world that, we really got our act together here. And, a lot of respects, we're doing so much better. But then something like this happens. Imagine if the breakdown rate in Louisiana started to go up after these rules went in. What on earth would PETA have had to say about this? And if that were to be the case, I couldn't necessarily disagree with people that said, that at least in Louisiana, they didn't do right by the horses. So thank goodness this thing worked out in the end.
I mean, CDI did the right thing. Great for them. And it was a really good week for HISA, because not only did you have this situation, but they also temporarily suspended any of the suspensions involving metformin, which we've talked about before a lot on this podcast. And I think that's the right thing to do right now as well.
Right.
But not Jonathan Wong. The XB TV Work of the Week is Arabian Night. More Bob Baffert all the time here. Arabian Night has been off the grid since finishing fourth in the Breeders' Cup Classic as the 7-2 choice last November. He returned to the work tab in April. This is now his 10th work back since that time. Trainer Bob Baffert said that Amir Zedan's $2.3 million OBS April 2-year-old was pointing toward the San Diego handicap July the 27th at Del Mar, and he certainly could not be working any better right now, just stretching those long legs coming down the stretch at Santa Anita. That is him on the outside, Arabian Night.
All the thrills. Fraction of the bills. Experience the power of the partnership. Change your life, make new friends, and compete at the highest level of thoroughbred racing. West Point Thoroughbreds, the gold standard in racing partnerships. Visit westpointtb.com.
The TDN Writers Room also brought to you by West Point Thoroughbreds. How about the West Point-owned Ohana Honor, who was aggressive early, then came charging late to dead heat for third in the Manhattan at Saratoga with a career-high buyer of 100 in the process. Ohana Honor, trained by Shug McGahee, and was ridden by Kendrick Carmouche. Also on Saturday, at Horseshoe, Indianapolis, 3-year-old filly Sense of Pearl took a maiden special weight race at 5 furlongs on the turf for West Point, trainer Steve Asmussen and jockey Marcelino Pedroza. And remember a couple weeks ago, we talked about the West Point-owned Atomic Blonde, the German import who won the Kirtana Stakes at Churchill Downs. West Point is at it again this Saturday night. Winning Spirit, another German import owned by West Point, makes his first start in America in the Chorleywood Overnight Stakes, as West Point seeks its 5th stakes win of the Churchill meet. To learn more, visit westpointtb.com.
Well, that's a wrap on this week's show. I want to thank my partners, Randy Moss and Zoe Cabin, our Green Group guests of the week, Danny Gargan, and the people who worked so hard behind the scenes, Katie Petruniak, Anthony LaRocca, Malia Rocca, our producers. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for tuning us in. Hope you guys had a great Belmont Stakes day, and we'll catch up with you next week.